And thank you for joining us today and giving us this information. I think this is an issue that most people don't touch on. You know, shutdowns take place, unfortunately, more than they used to when I first came to Congress. And people sort of live with it, deal with it, and then no questions are asked later. So I think, Madam Chair, that you've done something really good here in having this hearing, because it allows us to ask questions. Mr. Berger, in your experience at OMB and having lived through the 2013 shutdown, can you give us a sense of the standard protocol federal agencies and departments are required to provide employees in terms of communicating information about what to expect in the lead up to shutdown, during a shutdown, and after funding is restored? And how quickly are federal employees expected to receive back pay once a shutdown ends and Congress authorizes it?
Yeah. So with respect to the first question, agencies in their plans are supposed to both talk about how they're going to do the shutdown itself, how things are going to operate during the pendency of the shutdown, and then how they're actually going to bring people back, which you can imagine is actually a little bit challenging because when folks are furloughed, they're not allowed to be checking their emails. You don't show up every day at the office and check to see if, the lights are still off. And so it is actually a challenging thing for agencies to figure out how to make those communications. So there's a lot of time and effort that agencies put into that, as well as agencies in their planning walk through who's going to tell everybody, right? So, the Department of the Interior, National Parks, these are big places with lots of people. And so, someone writes down something on a sheet somewhere that says the following 5 people are going to be furloughed. Well, someone has to make sure those 5 people know, and these 5 people know, and these 5 people know. So there's a tremendous amount of work that agencies put in to making sure that they're communicating with employees before, to a certain extent during, although that has to be very limited, and then after. The during part would be for employees that would be anticipated to come back on. Again, this is why that planning on the front end is so important. So emergency responders, for example, are maybe alerted that to the extent that, say, you don't need the full complement, that they may be called back at some time so that they can be aware of it. But for example, in a circumstance like this in which you may have had significant staff that understood themselves to be furloughed at the beginning, it then is complicated as to how you would communicate with them that now the agency has shifted course, and in fact they aren't going to be furloughed and are going to be brought back on. That's one of the reasons why agencies are supposed to plan ahead of time and figure out who's going to be kept on and who's not just initially, but over the course of a longer shutdown.
Now, in this recent shutdown, was this a serious problem? Did it create, people were not aware? I had no idea that you couldn't find a way to check on the messages coming into you.
It's a challenging circumstance. I'm not personally aware of whether or not individuals had problems with this, but it was something that we had to deal with because, in essence, if you tell people they got to be checking their BlackBerry every 10 minutes, then they're working, right? That's what they're doing, even if they check it 10 minutes and.
Well, if they have a BlackBerry, I think we have another issue, right?
Well, this actually, you do raise you raise an interesting question. Some agencies did, in fact, collect BlackBerries, but one of the concerns, one of the problems in implementing a shutdown is, that these folks are really mission-driven. They care about the work that they're doing, and telling them to stop, to basically stand down, whether it be at the parks, whether it be at any of the other agencies, EPA and the like, is very challenging. And so people had to be very clear, you can't do your work. I know that you are doing this because you think, and you know that what it is incredibly important to the American people, that you serve an incredibly important function, but right now, you can't do it. And it actually was challenging to make sure people understood that, and they didn't try and show up and just get 2 more things done, because this is going to mean so much to these people if I can just get this paper out the door. You had to say no. And this is sort of the problem with the shutdown. Shutdowns are bad for business no matter what business you're in. And it means that a lot of really important things stop. And that's why I think, as the member so correctly pointed out, we shouldn't have them in the first place.
Madam Chair, do I have any time left? No.
Why don't you take another minute?
Oh.
If you've got a quick question, we'll do another minute.
I just wanted Mr. Francis to tell us if the members of your coalition feel that the administration gave them sufficient information and communication from leadership on what to expect before, during, and after a shutdown occurs. Have your members currently employed by NPS received all of their compensation for the duration of the shutdown, and have all parks become fully operational?
Now our coalition is comprised of retired National Park Service employees. So we have about 1,600 retired employees, and we have some active employees. With regard to communication of current National Park Service employees, I think many people felt that they were in the dark, that they did not receive communication. And communication is hard because people work 7 days a week, multiple shifts. It's not easy to always communicate with all of our employees, but I think that that's certainly an area that could be worked on.
Thank you, Madam Chair.